Righto, welcome to our last Fox Sports podcast. Got the family one going on to December, but here we are, the last one. We're here. We're hitting the finish line. I tell you what, it's been a long year because at one point when the pause happened in the game, we had the Fox League Lives, which was 3 hours of sitting in this little room, and you know you're hard up for things to talk about when you're sitting Fletch and Hindy and you got the Sunday paper and you're reading Body and Soul out loud.
Mate, that's my go-to, Body and Soul.
How you going, boys?
You couldn't tell, Block. Going well.
How you going? You good?
Good, mate. Grand final week doesn't get any better.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it gets worse if you don't win. From your best to your worst, isn't it, if you don't win? Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to talk all things grand final. We're going to talk, one of the big talking points has been what Cameron will do. We'll touch on that. We'll talk about his legacy. But before we talk about the grand final and try to find a winner, let's give our dues to the two sides that have been eliminated over the weekend, the Raiders and Souths. And all things considered, the Raiders have had a hell of a season. All the travelling they did at the start of the year. And let's not forget, last weekend, the Queensland government, honestly, when you look at what the things they're allowing the AFL to do, to not
Let
just
him
give a little
before.
allowance to the Raiders was just ridiculous.
It's disgraceful.
Yeah.
Really disgraceful. The Raiders got to the point where when they flew into Brisbane, the players were finding a piece of floor in the corporate boxes to lay down and try and rest after their flight to get ready for the game, laying on the floor. Just, look, really unacceptable. And I'm disappointed the NRL didn't get involved earlier and just do a little bit of argy-bargy and say to the Queensland government, listen, let's just play the game here, because what's happening in the AFL, it's dead set like Schoolies week up there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they can do their best.
Oh, they're supposed to be in their little bubble, but they're a long way from that. I'll tell you, it's Schoolies week for the AFL, and to not allow the Raiders to fly up 4 or 5 hours earlier, whatever that time frame was, so they could not go to a hotel, lay down, sit on a bed for a couple of hours, and then have a massage and all that, and basically recover from the travel. Because as you blokes know, the reason teams fly the night before is because that trip actually takes something out of you.
Of course it does.
For sure.
Craig Johnston, he was the one that sort of tipped off the rugby league sides, that he said to them, what, you travel the day of the game? They said, Liverpool, unless you're travelling less than 30 minutes, no, you go to a hotel. He said it's proven how much it takes out of your legs.
And Ricky does it all the time anyway. Even when Campbell were playing at home, sometimes he'll take him to a hotel to get him there and get them, prepared the night before.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the testament to the season the Raiders have had. When the game resumed after COVID suspension, their home games were at Campbelltown, and the NRL made them get buses up on the day of the game.
Yes.
So, respectfully, I know the Storm have done it tough this year. Okay, they had to move to Sunshine Coast.
Well, at least they've got the home base, haven't they?
They've got a base there, and this is the important thing I think has been missed, is all the Sydney NRL sides, they go to training, and then when training's finished, they have to go home to their houses. They're not allowed to go and have a coffee together.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to go and do any social activity together. They have to return home.
Yeah.
Whereas the Storm, I know the initial putting them up on the Sunshine Coast was an upheaval, but once they're up there and then the families have all come into town, they actually go back to their resort where they're staying. They've got their families there. They're organising table tennis competitions, and they're actually sitting within the bubble. They're sitting in coffee shops, and they're all enjoying each other's company.
Well, there's a lot to be said about that. Look at the Warriors. Under their difficult circumstances, come over, forced to really unify, live in each other's pockets, and look what they achieved.
And similar circumstances, mate. And then they travelled from Terrigal to Gosford for their home games, which was no inconvenience. So, look, it's been an unusual season, and it's been there's a lot of hidden stories behind what's happened. At the beginning of the season, I tipped Parramatta for the minor premiership based on the fact that once the season resumed, Parramatta would be doing less travel than every other team. Now, the team I took my eye off was Penrith, who
Yes.
just up the road, but had the same advantage. That they had very little travel comparatively to what the other side's faced. And because it's game day travel, up and back on the game. So whereas in the past, the Cowboys and even the Broncos, when they've had to travel, at least they're going the night before. This year they've had to go on the day, which has made it increasingly difficult, whereas the Panthers have had a dream run in that respect.
Just on the Raiders, mate, for all those reasons and losing Josh Hodgson at the start of the season, let's not overlook that. That was, yes, they got through.
But when they
to the
needed
Grand
that
Final
big-time
qualifier,
player...
but they still... that is just it's huge loss. I gave him a 9 out of 10, given all things considered. South Sydney, on the other hand, geez, start of the year, slow start, inconsistent middle of the year, but just didn't they get wind in their sails towards the end? Interesting about South, you know, where they go from here. The general thought is they're on the up and improve. Your thoughts on that?
Gee, I don't know. The best thing about all those young blokes are going to get another off-season. I always thought in my own mind watching the South Sydney side, and I'm thinking, when are they going to have this bump in the road? When are they going to have the hiccup? I looked at their forward pack and I'm going, Wayne Bennett's actually got all these guys playing better than what they are, apart from Cook.
Yeah.
Apart from Cook, all these other young blokes, Bailey Sheeran and all those guys, Liam Knight, they were playing out of their backsides, weren't they? And I was thinking to myself, you know, when's this hiccup going to happen? And then they got those couple of injuries last week, and then, mate, the deck fell in.
Arrow's going to be a great pickup for him.
Yeah. Where do you play him?
I don't know if he's the answer though, mate.
Where do you play him?
You need one of those. You need like a Sam. Now, you're not going to pick up. Yeah, that's right. You're not going to pick up a Sam, but you need that. You need that bloke in the middle of the field who can give you guaranteed momentum and can sort a few blokes out.
Fanua Blake, Marty Tapau.
Yeah, you're right.
Very hard, great. That sort of player that's just tough and just going to punch forward and just start your roll forward.
Yep.
Geez, Walker had a season. Cody Walker had an incredible back half of the year.
Mate, unbelievable. He had spiders on him. You know, we were talking about how great a ball player he was. The thing that I noticed most about him is, and generally when you've got ball players, they're not great tackle breakers. Mate, he broke that many tackles. And I'm looking at it going, mate, how does he do that?
That was a great thing. When we used to sit down with Alan Bell, who I've spoken about plenty of times here, he would show us things about Alan Langer. And he said the reason Langer is a really special player is that Kerrod Wallace can fire in the ball early and he takes it and he can create. But he said he does something that a lot of halves don't like to do. When Kerrod jumps out of dummy half, Alf will turn into a hole hitter.
Yep.
And, mate, he'll give it to his dummy half, where a lot of halves just, no, I like the ball early.
Yeah.
And Walker's like that too.
Yep.
That when Cook goes, he goes. Yep. He really compliments him. Righto, boys, let's move on to this Sunday night. I want to go back to 2006. In 2006, the team who had dominated the previous 15 years were the Brisbane Broncos, and on that night they played the Melbourne Storm. Now, the Broncos beat the Storm. But looking back on it now, and I remember you had a sense of, at the time, there was a passing of the baton to a side that would dominate the next 15 years. Now, I'm not saying that the Melbourne Storm are going to come back to the field. They're still going to be a dominant side. But do you see this Sunday night, in some ways, regardless of the result, as a passing of the baton to this young Penrith side?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. The thing about Melbourne, and we all say it, we're all waiting for them to drop off. But Craig Bellamy's got 1 year left at the club. 2021's his final season. Now, I know there's still negotiations going on about him having some sort of consultancy role there. But, Matt, you see every coach come out of Melbourne, every assistant that comes out of Melbourne, they all think at some point they know what makes Bellamy the coach he is.
Yeah.
And generally what they do is they adopt the hard-ass attitude.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other side to Bellamy that allows him to talk to his players that way, which is how much he cares for his players.
Yeah, that's right.
And I can use the word empathy for his players. And they miss that.
How many coaches would feel comfortable or about he's under there changing a tyre and they're filming him?
I loved it.
And all taking the out of him.
I loved it.
If he's the same bloke that we see up in the box, that doesn't happen.
No way. No.
There's not all the coaches that I was coached by that
would get in and
would feel
change their own tyre.
They give you a clip over the ear.
Yeah. They would. They'd go at you, wouldn't they?
Yeah. But the other thing too is, so whoever comes into Melbourne for 2022, they're going to come into a system and they're going to think people are going to think it's a system. The Melbourne club already think it's a system that works. I think it's Bellamy that works. Bellamy put him in another club. Within 3 years, they're motoring along like the Storm.
Yeah.
The difficulty for the Storm's going to be whoever comes in, he's going to have this overbearing presence in the whole building of Craig Bellamy. He's going to want to try and improve on that, which is going to be difficult. But coaches are ambitious.
Yeah.
You know why? You know why they're going to pass the baton. And this is what I worry about the Melbourne Storm now. And we're talking about Bellamy, and rightfully so, and all those sort of guys. And they lost Slater and Cronk and Inglis and all those sort of guys. When Cameron Smith didn't play in that grand final a few years ago against Manly, they got beat by 40.
Yep.
A few years ago.
Well, how long ago was it?
Yeah.
Well,
it's true.
It's a few years ago.
Yeah.
So
there've been 9 grand finals.
I think it was 12 years ago.
12 years ago. But no, what I'm saying is once he goes, how are you going to – I know, Grant and that come back into the side and all that sort of stuff, but Storm lose a lot, not only if Bellamy goes, but if Cameron Smith goes.
Bellamy Smith are the best combination since Hall and Oates. But they're the best combination I think we've seen in the game.
And you can see the reasoning why, Matty.
Yeah.
He touches the ball more than anyone, doesn't he? So he's, and that's what happens when you've got a great side and you've got a great dummy half.
Yeah.
Once he goes, the lemon's squeezed.
Yeah, but he controls the game better than anybody.
Oh, no, you're right. No,
he's got the ability to. Bellamy just pours stuff in his ear and it just goes out and Cameron just.
He filters it.
He just does it.
The Melbourne Storm Club, what's interesting is Bellamy, his era has been so incredibly successful and dominant, is that it almost serves as an iron curtain to what happened beforehand. Chris Anderson deserves a lot of credit as well.
Well, they won
second year they come into the competition and that combination was Anderson-Lazarus.
Yeah.
They win the competition.
Which was a bit frosty.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
it was a bit frosty, but they still got the job.
And what was interesting about that, they built a certain culture up in that side. And when Chris Anderson, when Oates left, they put in Mark Murray come in, set up had a different way of doing things again, and it didn't work. It didn't work. And then the Bellamy years come in. So that's what you're saying is Kenty is right. You can anoint the next coach. I don't know many coaches who can come into a side and just go, for use of a better term, a simple way of saying it, just keep doing what you're doing. All coaches think they can come in and do something better and want their fingerprints on something.
But, mate, a coach can't come in either and say, keep doing what you're doing.
No.
Because he won't have Cameron Smith for a start.
Yeah.
Okay, he's going to have to rebuild the club. And I know they're going to have whoever the hooker is, whether it's Brandon Smith or Harry Grant, still going to be a hell of a hooker. They're still going to have the system come through. But there's a little bit of magic dust in Craig Bellamy.
Of course there is.
That people don't pick up on.
I know Melbourne Storm, their idea of who's going to coach next is succession rather than going outside the box. They're really mindful that, and I know it's problematic as far as someone thinking they know what Bellamy's all about.
It is, mate, that's a real problem.
I think there's more likely of someone like Jason Riles going in as a coach than there is of going outside and trying to get
I reckon
at least at first to give him a crack.
Yeah, I reckon you fail if you try to be like someone else. You can take bits and pieces off everyone that you've been coached under or played under. But if you go in there and try to be them, it won't work.
Geez, their recruitment's good.
But they block us so many times. You just talk to. Look at Seabold this year. Like, respectfully, he came out. He went into the South Sydney system after Michael Maguire, which was very much a Storm type setup. He had success that first year. Then he went to Brisbane, which was completely different.
Yeah,
they had totally different training regimes and the way they prepared for their games. They didn't have the moles in their legs that the Storm did and that the Rabbitohs did. And he found out he couldn't coach another way. He could coach the way he knew he'd been taught how to coach, but he couldn't coach the other way. So his players needed to be coached. So too often in the game, we see coaches come in, and this shits me, to be honest, but they come in and they go, oh, mate, it's going to take 3 years to get the roster I want.
Yeah.
No, mate.
No.
You've been given a job to get something done next year.
Get it right now.
And so don't sit there and don't say, I need 3 years to get all the players out who I don't know how to coach. It's not that they can't play. It's just I don't know how to coach them because they're not my style of player. The fact is, a coach should adapt to the playing group. He should be able to, whatever. And this is where you look at a bloke like Bennett, right, who's done such a good job with what he's picked up at South there. And you look at what Ricky Stewart's done, right? Ricky Stewart has not tried to coach his team like anybody else other than what he's got. He got George Williams and he sat down and he spoke to his father at the start of the year and he said to his father, I'm going to play him this way. Now, his father's a pretty successful coach in England, so he knows his footy. And the way Ricky was going to play him was he was going to play him both sides of the ruck. Just play him as a typical halfback, an old-fashioned halfback, just first receiver, left or right, didn't matter. He's not playing left or right like a lot of sides do. And his father said, mate, that's the perfect way to do it because Ricky didn't try and turn him into
on ball,
an NRL halfback.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Give him equal rights. I mean, that wouldn't suit Jack Whiten either. Jack Whiten say, mate, you're going to do this and don't step outside the box. Talking about that, when coach... It's funny, coaches go in, when they sit down for the interview, it's like I likened it to, when you get a builder to build your house. I want to do this, I want to do that, and I want it done in 12 months. Absolutely not a problem. As soon as they start, they go in and they sign the contract.
It rains for a week.
Mate, I've gone over budget. It's going to take us 3 years.
Exactly.
That's how they work.
Yeah,
Exactly.
or I can get it done in 12 months, but it's got to cost you a lot more.
Yeah. Hey, what about the other way to look at it too? When I look at my poor old Tigers at the moment, right? There's a lot of blokes, and I don't begrudge anyone for getting big money. If you sign a deal and you're getting 800, 900, whatever it is, they've got 3 or 4 blokes there now that are on big money that they can't offload because they're all on 800, 900,000, right? So what happens to the blokes that sign these guys to the contract and then float off into the ether to another club?
Yeah.
I'm saying Ivan Cleary. And then all of a sudden he becomes the coach of the year, and the poor old Tigers are treading water. They're all drowning.
Two really crucial blokes.
Isn't it cruel?
It's cruel.
Two really crucial blokes of the Melbourne Storm don't get a lot of credit is Frank Panisi, who's Frank is just one of the great rugby league blokes. Smart, been all around the world coaching in rugby union, rugby league at Manly, just seen things a million times. And Paul Bunn, the recruitment bloke. That's when you look at the Melbourne Storm. I mean,
but do you ever hear of the recruitment bloke? No. He's a mystery man, just does his job.
I think the Broncos were trying to get Paul Bunn back. Heavy wanted him back.
Well, he originally was at the Broncos because I run into Bunny quite a bit, and I used to say to Bunny, when I said to Bunny, when you see us on the podcast on the show, I said, about the Brisbane Broncos, even the blokes who carried the water thought they were better than you.
Yeah.
And I said, when I say that, I'm thinking of you.
Yeah, you.
I used to see it City
Really?
Rowers in him. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what's his philosophy when he goes out and why are they so successful? What do they pick that? See, the easy thing in picking and selecting players, the easy one is the outstanding one. That's easy to pick.
Yeah.
How do they actually?
pick? I think you'd have satellite scouts around the place, and
No, but what are they looking for? But
I think here's the interesting block about the Melbourne Storm. People say about the Melbourne Storm, they go, oh, mate, they get players who are struggling elsewhere, who are pretty ordinary players, and they turn them into superstars. And they have all this character. Melbourne Storm very rarely sign a bloke who hasn't got work ethic, discipline, and integrity.
Yeah, I think the secret to Melbourne block, which and it's a discipline, and I think it's something. I think the Roosters have identified it and begun to copy it. I think the Raiders have identified it and doing the same. Is they recruit character first.
Yep, absolutely.
Character first, talent second.
Yeah.
And the one thing about you talk about players why they improve. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but the way Bellamy likes to coach is he'll only give his players a job he knows they can do. He knows they can do, and that sounds simple. Okay, that sounds simple. But then within that, that's the first step in the door. But then within that, when they get picked to go out and run out for the Storm, they've essentially got 3 jobs. There's not a smorgasbord of things you've got to go out and do here. I want you doing this and that and that and that. It's 3 things. It's either make a certain amount of runs, don't miss this many tackles, whatever it is. 3 simple. And Bellamy always says, mate, he never asks them, in those 3 jobs, he never asks them something they are not capable of doing.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't say to Ryan Pappenhausen, mate, go out and run the side like a 7. You know what I mean? Like I'll go out and do what Billy did, and with those quick hands, and he doesn't ask him to do that. He knows what he can do. Yeah. So within what his own skill set is, these are your 3 jobs. Now, if those skill sets don't suit the team, you don't get picked. So But if they do suit the team, mate, come and do your job.
Yeah.
And if at the end of the game, you've done your 3 things,
Your bit, yeah.
you're okay, mate.
Yeah.
And then you'll get picked.
Yeah.
But, mate, if we've lost and you haven't done yours, then you're out.
And every person knows where they stand with Craig.
Yeah.
He's an honest coach. Like he didn't play well today. You do this one needs to be better. He's not the old-fashioned coach who's just always got you on tenterhooks.
Dances around.
Playing mind games with you. Kenny Bromwich, when you're talking about signing blokes who have got integrity and have got discipline and blokes who you know you can win with, Kenny Bromwich is an example of that. I think he's one of the most underrated back rowers in the game.
Yeah.
In a sport at the moment that is obsessed with size and power, I look at Kenny and I say, how many other clubs would have picked him up?
Yeah.
Because he's not a big man, but he's tough, he's got know-how, he's intelligent, and blokes love playing with him.
Yeah.